I've been investing for over a decade, and in the first few years, I was day trading, which made money but cost me everything else. When I switched to investing, I had no system, no filter, no rules. I just had to build all of that from scratch. What I'm about to walk you through are the lessons that took me years to figure out, condensed into one video. Every mistake, everything I had to learn, and the system I built because of it. Lesson 1, most people should not be day trading. When I started my career in the stocks world, trading seemed really sexy to me. It was fast paced, it was exciting, I heard you could make loads of money, so I was like, oh, I'm all in. And I was 19 at the time, so very impressionable. But quickly I realized that the life becoming a successful trader is not what you're looking for. It's staring at a screen for hours. It's high stress. It's worrying about if your next move is going to either make or break your account. Are you going to waste like months and months of successes, just wipe it out in one go by making a silly judgment call? That's what the reality is actually like. And I think at any age, nobody wants that level of stress in their life. It is definitely not what I wanted anyway, because it takes up your entire life. It's all you think about. When you shut your eyes at night, you still see charts. Like, not fun. Investing is totally different. And it's the thing that I think most people really are looking for. The freedom, the choice, the small incremental growth over time that really makes a big difference. Honestly, I think the high returns was what drew me into trading in the first place, the fast-paced stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, well, I'm happy to put the time in if it means getting more returns. And I hear a lot of people say this, but the reality is the amount of time you need to put in to become a professional trader, a successful trader, is the same amount of time you need to put into any 9-to-5 career. Probably even more so, because you've got to practice outside of those hours. So in actual fact, you spend way more time trying to get to this level. I really had this realization that I was totally heading down the wrong road. It was the first time I went on a holiday with the family of my partner at the time. So she'd invited me away with her family. First time I'd actually met a lot of them. So, you know, you want to make a good impression. And we were in Spain, and I realized I'd spent most of the week in my room trading. Not because I was trying to be antisocial or anything like that, but it's just what was required for me to continue being successful with it. That's not freedom, is it? If you're missing family events, if you miss doing things with your kids, if you're doing things where you think, hang on, I'm actually missing out on all these key moments in life that I'd really want to be enjoying, well then what's the point? Like, what are we even doing here? So that's when I really knew, okay, I need to figure out a different way to do this, because the most successful people in the world make money with stocks, but they're not spending all day on it. So what was the difference there? When I moved into investing, a whole different set of problems showed up, starting with how I was picking what to buy. Lesson 2, what you buy is the most important factor in your success. So when I made the jump from trading to investing, I just assumed it would be very similar in that you're looking for some patterns, you're looking for things that look like they should look, and you know, you can go off a bit of a hunch in a lot of occasions. Investing is not like that at all. In fact, how you choose your investments, I've found now, is the thing that is going to make the biggest differences, whether you are successful or that you're not. So you've got to have a really strict criteria to choose what companies you would invest in and what ones you wouldn't invest in. Because if you have a strict criteria, it makes your life a lot easier, because you're like, well, it either does meet the criteria or it doesn't. When people invest in property, they have a criteria, right? They say, right, I'm only going to buy houses in this area, this many bedrooms, this price. Like, they have a criteria. They don't just walk down the street and be like, yeah, I'll have one of those, which sounds ridiculous, but that's kind of how I was starting with investing in stocks. And I know a lot of people are out there doing that too. Instead, having a strict criteria made my life so much simpler. If I think back to when I first started in investing, I was saying things to myself like, oh, well, Christmas is coming up and I know people love Amazon at Christmas, so, you know, I'll invest in Amazon. That sort of logic is not going to make you money in investing, unfortunately. And I was just losing because every decision I made was based off of these hunches, like a feeling, a gut feel. Anytime you're saying, I think or I feel when it comes to investing, that's when you stop yourself. So I was really struggling for a while to pick these great investments, and I just kept picking bad ones. But even when I did pick good stocks, finally, that actually unveiled a whole new problem. Lesson 3, when to sell. This was probably the thing that took me the most time to get my head around, because I used to be very optimistic as an investor. I think that's fair to say. Where if a company was doing well, I was like, great, let me hold on to this. It's going to keep going higher and higher and higher. Obviously, that's not always the case. Or even sometimes I felt myself like, do you know what? I'm quite happy with the profit I've got now. Let me just sell this and get out of this and chill. Or it didn't really make sense to do it that way. And I tried to use some of my old skills from trading for it, but because they were so intricate and very short-term trends, it actually didn't make sense when I was trying to do longer-term investments. Like, the two didn't match up. It'd be like trying to do some sprinting techniques while you're running a marathon. There is no crossover there. So luckily, I realized, okay, well, instead of trying to make these split-second decisions, let me take a step back, and how about I decide where I'm going to exit the investment before I even enter? So I made a decision of, this is where I'm going to buy and this is where I'm going to sell before I even got into the investment. So I planned it all out in advance, and oh my goodness, did that make life a lot easier, because when you're prepared, you can act calmly and there is no surprise. You just play out the investment exactly as you'd want to. So the buying was the problem, then the selling was the problem. But underneath all of that, there was something a lot more important, a lot deeper, that was really the cause of all of this. And that was my emotions. Lesson 4, emotions are the #1 reason people fail with investing. The fact of the matter is, if you don't have a system, a step-by-step strategy to make the decisions for you, then every decision you make will be an emotional one. That's it. Even people who are really comfortable with numbers, love maths, even they would agree that when money gets involved, it becomes more tense, becomes emotional, because people have an emotional attachment to money. So if you've got any emotions sneaking into your decisions, you're gonna make mistakes. Instead, I have found that having a step-by-step strategy that just takes all of that away, and it's like, right, when this happens, I do this. When that happens, I do that. When this happens, I do that. Not only does it make your life easier, it will make you so much more successful and consistent with your investing, because the strategy doesn't change. No matter how you feel, if you're having a good day, bad day, emotional day, happy day, whatever, it doesn't matter. You are consistent, and that's what really gets results. Great example of how the emotions get involved. After I'd created this investment strategy, even at the start, I was still trying to teach myself how to still control these emotions with this new strategy that I'd made, because it's all very well me saying, I've got this criteria, I know when to buy, when to sell, all of that. But I was also trying to get over some bad habits that I picked up from before. So one great example is, I remember there was a company that was hyped up on the online space where people were saying, oh, this is gonna blow up overnight. I think it was like BlackBerry. I believe it was them, and it was so much hype about it. I was like, do you know what? I'll put my strategy to the side just for a sec. Let's go for this, because I want to take advantage of this opportunity. I'd be silly to miss this out. The silly thing was not sticking to my strategy, right? Because BlackBerry didn't meet my criteria. It wouldn't have been a stock that I would got anywhere near otherwise. Throw some money in it. I think within 3 days, I'd lost most of that money. And it was such a perfect moment in my investing journey. It was probably the hit I needed to remember. Doesn't matter what you hear out there, ignore the noise, stick to the strategy, stick to your rules, because that's what will make you successful. And I haven't deviated since. Those 4 lessons cost me years, but every single one of them became a piece of my system that I use now. And that's what I want to show you next. That system only takes 5 minutes a day to run, and it's what everything I just described turned into. If you want me to walk you through the full thing live, I run a free masterclass at thetradetribe.com. Links in the description. Now, let me show you what the system actually looks like. So here's what all of those mistakes turned into. This strategy I have today is one I'm incredibly happy with, incredibly proud of, and so many people are using it. But it didn't just like come to me in a dream overnight. It wasn't some realization. No, every part of this was built because of mistakes that I'd previously made. Like, every part of the strategy has a purpose now to stop those mistakes repeating. Like how we choose stocks, having that set criteria means I'm only gonna pick fundamentally strong companies, not just ones I think are gonna do well. Knowing exactly when to buy, when to sell, there's no emotions getting involved. And then just not having any space for emotions to creep in has made my life way simpler and just made me a better investor. And this is now a 5-stock portfolio running in 5 minutes a day. That's the system, built from every wrong turn I took over the years. But if I could go back to day one, knowing what I know now, there are a few things I'd tell myself that would have saved me a hell of a lot of time. So if I could sit down with my younger self, here's what I'd say. The first one would be, don't chase get rich quick. I was very drawn into this whole idea of you can make money overnight, all these, big people online, all this fancy stuff. The reality is they've actually been doing what they've been doing for years, and they've just been consistent with it. But they don't tell you that on Instagram. So the second thing would be, lower risk over time will always be high risk. The third would be, money loves speed, but wealth loves patience. Making decisions quickly, assertively, and going for opportunities is a great way to build money, absolutely. But sticking to that for a prolonged period of time and being consistent is what actually generates wealth. You're not gonna build real wealth overnight, so you've gotta build the money, find what works, find what makes the money, i.e. follow a strategy, and then stick to that consistently for a period of time, and then you will get rewarded with wealth. And then lastly, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. The principles that have stood the test of time have done that for a reason. My strategy is built on things that have worked forever and will always work forever. And I wish I'd listened to one of my really early mentors about this. So having mentors has been probably the biggest cheat code I've ever had in my life, that it's just saved me years and years and years. It's probably helped me get success a lot sooner than I would have otherwise. And one of my first ones was this Canadian entrepreneur I lived with for a period of time over in Alberta, Canada. And he introduced me to the idea of long-term investing. It's actually through the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I just couldn't get it. Couldn't open my mind to that. I really wasn't in the space where I thought, oh, do you know what? This guy who has a great life, has a great business, has wealth, maybe I should listen to him. I thought, the world's changed. I'm young, I need to do things differently. And that was really silly of me. So I think finding somebody who's done what you want to do, just listening to them and how they did it, best thing I ever did. That took me a few minutes to teach you what took me 12 years to figure out myself. So don't make the same mistakes I did. That's the benefit of having someone who's been there and walked that path. Skip all the hardship, follow the advice that works, and you'll be far more successful, far quicker than I was. If you want me to walk you through the full system live, the exact filter, the entry rules, the exit rules, and real stocks going through the process, I run a free masterclass at thetradetribe.com. Links in the description. If you want more from this channel, I've broken down each part of the system into separate videos. Start with whichever one is most relevant to you where you're at right now, and I'll see you in the next one.